Scroll number 7. One aim, everything else follows. Napoleon Hill spent a single afternoon with Andrew Carnegie in 1908. Carnegie did not offer him money. He did not offer him a salary, a contract, or a guarantee of any kind. He offered him a question, and he waited for the answer. The question was whether Hill was willing to dedicate 20 years of his life to interviewing the most successful men in America and organizing what he found into a philosophy that ordinary people could use. Carnegie would open the doors. Hill would do the work. There would be no payment. Hill said yes. He did not say yes to Carnegie's wealth. He did not say yes to the prospect of fame or to a vision of what his life might look like in 20 years. He said yes to one aim, a single, specific, unwavering direction. Everything that followed, the interviews, the poverty, the ruin, the recovery, the 25 years of building, followed from that one moment of clarity, not from talent, not from connections, not from resources Hill did not have, from the decision to pursue one thing and to let everything else arrange itself around that pursuit. That is what Hill called definiteness of purpose. Not ambition. Every ambitious person has ambition. Not desire. Desire is common. Definiteness of purpose is the state in which a person has reduced their aim to one, and has committed to that one aim with enough force that the mind stops scanning for alternatives. The person who has one aim does not wonder what to do next. They already know. They have always known. The only question is how, and the how reveals itself to the person who does not waver on the what. Carnegie had watched this principle operate across the most successful men of his era. What separated them from everyone else was not luck, not birth, not the absence of hardship. It was the quality of their focus. They had one aim and they held it. Everything else, the relationships, the resources, the opportunities, followed the aim the way water follows a channel. The channel does not attract the water. It simply gives the water somewhere to go. One aim, everything else follows. Most people do not have one aim. They have several, competing, and the competition between them is the reason none of them advance. The person who is building a business while deciding whether to change careers, while wondering if this relationship is right, while questioning whether they are in the right city, is not moving in any direction with enough force to produce a result. They are distributing their energy across everything and concentrating it on nothing. And the mind, which works best when given a single clear instruction, receives a set of contradictory instructions instead and produces the result that contradicts produce. Stasis. Hill saw this pattern in the 500 men he studied. The ones who built nothing despite having every apparent advantage were almost always the ones whose aim kept shifting. They were responsive to opportunity, to criticism, to the fear that they had chosen the wrong thing. They moved toward what seemed promising and away from what seemed difficult. They never held a direction long enough to reach the depth where results live. They skimmed the surface of many things and called the skimming a strategy. I have done this. I know exactly what it feels like to hold 3 aims at once and to tell myself that the breadth is wisdom, that keeping options open is intelligence. It is not. It is the refusal to commit, wearing the costume of strategy. The person with one aim is not less free than the person with many. They are more powerful. All of their force moves in one direction. The resistance they meet in that direction does not scatter them because there is nowhere else to go. The aim is the aim. The only instruction is to continue. One aim, everything else follows. Carnegie gave Hill a question and waited for the answer. Not a prompt, not a nudge, a question that required a commitment. Carnegie had spent a lifetime watching what people revealed in the moment before they could construct a considered answer. The considered answer is the one the mind produces when it is trying to appear intelligent. The immediate answer is the one that comes from what the person actually wants. Hill's immediate answer was yes. No hesitation long enough to manufacture a reason not to. Just yes, and the direction that followed. I know my aim. I have always known it. The noise around it, the alternatives that present themselves as opportunities, the doubt that presents itself as wisdom, the options that present themselves as freedom, is not information. It is interference. The aim was there before the interference arrived, and it is still there now. Hill's 20 years following Carnegie's question produced Think and Grow Rich. The question was not the starting point. Clarity about the answer was. Once the aim was clear, the 20 years was not a sacrifice. It was a direction. The person who has one aim does not need to be motivated. Motivation is what the person with many aims requires. A force that temporarily overrides the competition between their directions and moves them in one of them for long enough to feel like progress. The person with one aim does not have that competition. The aim is already decided. The morning does not begin with a choice about what to pursue. It begins with the continuation of what was already in motion. Hill described this as one of the primary advantages of definiteness of purpose. It removes the daily decision. The aim makes the decision. The person simply moves. One aim, everything else follows. I have one aim. I have always had one aim. What I have sometimes lacked is the willingness to let everything else be secondary to it, to stop treating the alternatives as equally valid and stop giving the interference the same weight as the direction. Hill's philosophy was not complex. It was ruthless in its simplicity. One aim. All resources behind it. Everything else follows or it does not come. The person who holds this position long enough finds that most of what they thought they needed to figure out figures itself out once the aim is clear enough and held firmly enough to give everything else somewhere to follow. This is the final scroll of this immersion. 7 days. 7 principles. One philosophy built across 60 years by a man who said yes to one aim and spent the rest of his life following it. The philosophy did not make him wealthy immediately. It did not protect him from ruin. It gave him a direction that held through everything that came against it, until everything that came against it had passed, and the direction was still there and the work was done. One aim, everything else follows. One aim, everything else follows. One aim, everything else follows.